What's up, guys? We are back at Resilience Code. So if you remember a couple videos back, I did some performance testing where I was doing some lifting and had a whole bunch of sensors all over me and that type of thing. Well, we are back to see what the results were, to see if I can improve my performance, just kind of what all the testing shows. So hopefully, this is interesting. We said that we would bring you along for the ride, so we're going to go in and get the results and get it all on film so you can check it out. All right, guys, so we are in the meeting room here with Max and Sally, and they are going to now go over my report from all the performance testing that we did. So I'm excited to hear the results and yeah,
get it rolling.
See what we got.
Yeah, I think before we look at any of the results, it's important to understand the context of yourself. You're obviously arguably the world's greatest strongman and world's strongest man, and understanding who you are and what you do as performance-wise has helped guide us, because ultimately it's about you competing and winning, and it's not about necessarily making a drastic intervention that might take 2 steps back, 3 steps forward.
Makes sense, absolutely.
We want to look at this from the standpoint of how do we optimize your health, your wellness, but ultimately performance when you're competing, and how we make sure that what we do here is only beneficiary to that, and especially someone like yourself with lifting 1,200 pounds, with
sure,
the injury history you have is minimal. It's amazing, right? So we know from a sports science standpoint, typically you look at it, and if someone has a slew of injuries and a history of injuries, we use that in context to understand their movement patterns, to say, okay, maybe something is dysfunctional here. What is going on? And how do we modify dysfunctions? Someone like yourself, who is very, very clean and injury history-wise, you don't want to make a drastic intervention if something does come up, because that might be functional for what you're doing, and it's not going to make any performance benefits, if at all possibly maybe hinder your performance.
Makes sense.
So what we're going to dive into is a little bit of the previous injury history, talking about some of the leg length discrepancies and how that affects your gait analysis, because we know that was an identified issue and something we can modify when we get in front of the right people to get the right orthotics made. Totally. And then we talk about some of the force velocity aspects and how we use that, not from a training standpoint, because that's not pertinent to your own training, but how you use it for a neurological readiness assessment to understand the broader scope of readiness and tapering, and using it as a form of biofeedback so you can better understand exactly how you're feeling from a day after.
Gotcha.
All right?
Sounds good.
Cool. So on the force, I can even draw pictures too, like we did that one time.
Yeah.
We look at how you move a certain load at a certain speed, which is why we tested the squat, we tested the deadlift, and we tested the bench press, because those are movements that you might have reoccurring throughout a training cycle.
Yeah. In
that we use a specific load, say 70% of your 1RM, and that might be 650 pounds or roughly 600-ish depending on the day, to test your velocity. Now, if I know that percentage always occurs at, say, 0.7 meters a second, then I know if I'm feeling good that day, it's going to be moving a little faster. If I'm not feeling as good, it's going to be moving a little slower. It's using that analysis and that measurement over time to understand, how does this training load of this day affect my neuromuscular readiness for the next day? That way you can start to plan and get an understanding of not only how a taper works, but how daily interventions work. Oh, when I slept 9 hours versus 7 hours, my
big difference. Yeah.
My recovery was that much better.
Yeah.
You know that already, right? You can subjectively say that, but when you start to objectify it and put a number behind it, then you can really start to pinpoint, wow, when I do sleep 7.5, I have a 25% increase in my speed compared to my normal speed.
Sure.
Versus if I'm not sleeping well, I know I don't feel as good, but what is not feeling as good? Oh, it actually is, a 5% decrease in my 1RM for that day.
Sure.
Which then, if you're to go in thinking your 1 rep max was what it was, let's say 1,000 pounds, but it's actually, say, 950 for that day because you're a little tired, your training load of whatever percentage might actually be a little more taxing than expected. And when you're dealing with someone like yourself who's working that really fine needle, and you really want to make those 1, 2, and 3% gains, it matters, those small adjustments, right? We want to make sure we're taking into account everything. Because you're not at a point where it's general strength. You're the most specific strength sport there is in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. I mean, it's you know, up to this point, a lot of that stuff has just been by feel. You know, so if I go in the gym and I start deadlifting, for example, it's you know, something where I can tell very quickly within my first few lifts that the bar speed isn't as good as it should be, right? But I think this is just taking that extra step to get something on there to measure the bar speed, you know, and then I can have a black and white figure and say, like you said, you know, that the bar at 50% should be moving at, you know, 0.7 meters a second or something like that. And then if I'm below that, I know for sure that I can then, on the fly, essentially, make an adjustment to that specific training session to get more benefit out of it, rather than kind of banging my head against the wall and saying like, all right, well, I don't really care how I'm feeling, I'm just going to keep going. And I think that that's something, you know, over my years of training I've had to learn, but also, you know, it's something that I think that, you know, probably a lot of the people viewing this video, it's kind of that no pain, no gain, you know, kind of stubborn mentality when it comes to training, that they're just going to push through no matter what, when all these factors, like you mentioned, the sleep, obviously eating's a huge one, stress is a huge one. You know, a lot of these things can really, really change performance when it comes to training. So I think it's just, it'll be neat moving forward here to get some of that stuff, you know, more detailed, more dialed in, you know, and that's kind of something that's pretty exciting, because I think that, you know, the more that I can fine tune the training and the training plan moving forward, the better it's all going to work.
Yeah, and from a sports science standpoint, we want to do things that are minimally invasive. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to train. That's silly. You know how to train a lot better than I do, especially for yourself.
Sure.
What I want to do is provide ways that you can objectively measure how you are feeling, how you're performing in a way that's actionable. So by having this, you know, sub-maximal velocity kind of test, as you might call it, if we're looking at neuromuscular readiness, it's a way you can do it in the warm-up that's not going to be invasive to your training. You don't have to modify your training in any way to get the test done.
Absolutely.
But doing the test might help guide you and give you just a little more information, because ultimately, right, our human body is really complex. Yeah. How we sleep, how we feel, what we eat, all matters. But all that goes in to the output of a performance, right? Someone doesn't just run well because they run well. They ran well because all these things are going on.
Factors, yeah.
Right? All these other factors, and that test is just a way to look at how those other factors might be going. Sure. Kind of like a check engine light. We did do like mobility screening and the 3D skeletal analysis and the static one. It was impressive. Right?
Okay.
I've measured a lot of people, especially when you put them under any sort of load, whether it is a high percentage of their 1RM or even a small one, like the 400-pound deadlift, use a small percentage of your 1RM per deadlift.
Yeah.
Your symmetry was awesome. It really was.
That's great. That's
it was
exciting.
Actually very impressive.
Okay.
I've measured a slew of different athletes, whether it be powerlifters, professional sport players and whatnot, and they're not always very symmetrical. For someone who's under the loads that you are and be as resilient as you are to a lot of the, I guess, lack of injuries, it makes a lot of sense.
Awesome.
Right? Because when you're symmetrical and there's loads, especially how heavy they are,
sure,
right, you want to be in a biomechanically favorable position that allows you to stack joints properly, allows the line of pull of the muscle to act on the bar in a way that makes sense. If we're leaning one way or the other, when you got 1,000 pounds on your back, it
gets magnified.
It gets magnified by a lot. So I mean, it was pretty awesome to see. I use that word again because I've measured a lot of people, and you pick off things like, okay, you can see why this guy's low back is bothering him. You can understand why this guy has, you know, outside hip issues. You understand why this guy's a shoulder issue, and then someone like yourself with minimal issues, you understand why they have minimal issues.
That's pretty cool. That's great.
Which is excellent for our end. The one thing we did talk about, though, in detail in regards to some of those was the foot.
Okay.
Right, the foot, the leg length discrepancy. We saw that in the Gait analysis, and Sally can talk a little bit more here about this in detail, about how some of the foot pressures and foot forces were a little different.
Yeah, and you were able to kind of follow up. You knew beforehand coming in that you had a leg length We had you in bare feet just so we could kind of see.
Okay.
Our gait analysis and barefoot reports all indicate the shift, so that you can see on that left side. You can also see you're not using the toe as much. You're not on it for as long because you have the longer limb to take.
And that's with a barefoot, or
Yep.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep, barefoot.
So take that off.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you
And
can actually see the functional outcomes of what leg length does for you.
Interesting.
yeah, and we use that as a way to identify a further referral. Right.
Okay.
I'm not going to sit here. I'm not the one measuring your leg length.
Yeah.
I don't have the imaging system for it. I'm not qualified for it. I don't have the medical degree in it. But we can say, okay, look, you told us coming in that there was an issue. You walk, we see our forces, we see the pressure mapping, and it goes, oh, yeah, something's going on.
Yeah.
That's why we got the imaging set up so we can have the leg length measured. And there was a discrepancy, as you previously noted.
Absolutely.
And so we can get the proper orthotics made and then retest it to see if that balances out the pressures and force like we expect it to.
Gotcha.
In those same 2 pairs of footwear, it'd probably be good as well, because we saw with the footwear on, with the heel lift in, there was
Okay.
immense improvements, but there's still a shift.
Gotcha.
That's why getting a new oversight on that
Would
lift
help.
and the full orthotic as well would help.
Yeah.
So now seeing how that's improved is definitely something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And people, like, it seems kind of silly, are you lifting thousands of pounds and we're talking about your feet?
Sure. Feet are
They're
so important.
unbelievably important, and one of the things that we don't think about is in a training session, let's say someone's squatting, they might do somewhere between 35 to 50 reps. If it's a heavy day, maybe only 15.
Yeah.
When we walk, we take 10,000 steps a day.
That's insane.
Right,
Yeah.
and so I'm not squatting every day, but I'm going to be walking 10,000 steps every day. Now, if some reason my walking pattern, especially for someone like yourself, with the amount of weight you're carrying, how strong you are and big you are, you're going to be loading your joints every time you step.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Right, and so if we think about water dripping on a rock, a little bit of droplets don't do anything. If we have water dropping on it for 2 years, you get erosion and you get a hole.
Yeah.
Right? Right, just like
Makes
walking,
sense. Yeah.
I want you to be optimal walking because, let's face it, you're bigger than most human beings out there, right? You're more powerful than them, you generate more force. Let's put you again like in a biomechanically favored position to handle those forces, even just walking, because if you walk incorrectly and we have something go on for 3 months, all of a sudden your hip flares up, you might think it's your squatting, but really it's something going on with your gait analysis and your
Makes
gait
sense.
function that's rippling up the kinetic chain.
With this, and this is something we've actually not brought up on the channel before. So for me, I identified that my left leg was slightly shorter than my right. Probably about 5 years ago, I had a chiropractor named Todd McDougall that actually helped me and initially took the x-rays, and I told him I was having all these problems with, groin pain and all that, but it seemed to get much worse with the heavier carries, right? And so he's like, hey Brian, I think you might have this going on. So he's the one that I owe like a lot to for initially identifying that, because it's helped me tremendously. I was having a lot of issues, but it's funny, like through my athletic career, I never really noticed anything. It was only when we started getting under these massive loads that it started showing up. So, for you guys, is that something that's fairly normal, like a little slight leg length discrepancy?
Functional, anatomical.
Okay.
We see a lot
Yeah.
of functional, but not so many anatomical.
Gotcha.
So functional in the sense that you might have, if you were to measure your entire leg, regardless of how your pelvis sat,
Gotcha.
it would be the same length. However, the way they are placed are different because you might have musculature hyperactive on one side,
Gotcha.
one versus whatever reason it may be, that'd be considered functional, correct?
Yep.
And then
Gotcha.
anatomical means no matter how you shift your legs,
It's
one
just
leg
one
is
is
just
not.
longer,
Yeah.
right?
Gotcha.
Femur bone, that's literally.
Just a touch longer.
A
Touch longer, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that gets magnified now when you start walking. It's not always going to rear its head with everybody, even if they do have an anatomical difference, because they might not be carrying the loads that you are,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
and they're also not producing the forces that you are.
Yeah, it never, like I said, it never really showed up for me until I started doing a lot of the really super heavy stuff consistently. And then it seemed like it just got aggravated and magnified, if you will, into something that was bigger. So it's something that I'm super happy we identified because it helped me a lot, and I feel like I've been a lot more solid with all of my training and you know, especially under the bigger loads. So it'll be cool to get it dialed in even more, because I think that, you know, we're just taking the next step. I mean, all this stuff, like we said, is just, I want to find the extra little percent or two on top of what I've already done, you know? And so all these little things are just dialing that in even more. So I mean, to be honest, I'm pretty excited, like, you know, to get the testing back and say, okay, everything's pretty good. You know, like, it's just, we need to, you know, look at a couple of these things, identify that, you know, make sure the left foot is striking the ground the way that it should, and that I'm getting all the power out of that, you know, that it's not causing a problem up the chain. But I think that's exciting, man. I mean, I've never been hooked up to all the, you know, the sensors like this and had this type of testing done, you know, so it's great to get good news, you know, if you will, back, and then kind of say, okay, now we don't have a major problem going on. Let's just dial this even more and take it up another notch.
Yeah, and there's a reason why you're the best in the world, right?
Sure.
If there was something, a big red flag that came up in our testing, I wouldn't expect you to be the best in the world. Something would have happened far before you get into this spot.
Absolutely.
Right, now that you're here, we're trying to find that needle in a haystack kind of thing. What is that 1% that isn't going to show up without technology? Right? How can I identify it? How can I objectify it? And then how can I act upon it so it makes my training more beneficial? Not how can we adjust our training.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's great.
Awesome.
All right, guys, so we finished up the performance meeting, and as part of my testing here at Resilience Code, we also did a full blood panel, and I've got the results back from that. We're going to kind of go through that on a separate video because there's a lot to go through, but as part of that, to kind of get everything on the right track, I'm going to be doing a custom IV here now, so we're going to show that as part of this video. Have some fun with that, but basically this IV is custom made for me based on my blood results. So there's a lot of good stuff in it, gonna kind of get me back on the right track and hopefully improve my performance. So we'll get to show the IV here, and you guys can enjoy that.
And the pressure's on.
Kind of happy I actually kind of fit in the chair, so that's not a bad thing. Normally that's the question mark.
Like, where are you going to sit?
Yes, yeah. Squeeze
The
into
question
it.
too is, are you comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, all right. I'm not going to complain. You
Okay,
know?
do you want me to just go?
Oh, it's fine.
Okay.
Look at that. Was that easy?
Mm-hmm.
Very
you have
easy.
really
Okay.
good ways. Yeah.
That's good.
But sometimes it's like, oh, that one's like right there, and then it's
That doesn't
deceiving,
wanna
and then it
cooperate.
doesn't want to cooperate. But and you probably don't need a tourniquet for your veins; they're popping out like crazy. But
Awesome.
all right.
So vascular.
No,
Yeah, right.
you are. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I just take it up? So I'll put it on a bag, that way it'll go in within like 30 to 45 minutes.
Okay,
Otherwise
awesome.
we'll probably be here for at least an hour.
I'm getting a custom one done, but you know, as far as other people you see, is this a common thing to get the custom, or do you have people that come in and just get stuff that's kind of on the menu?
Right,
if you will?
we do have a menu, and it's both. We do have a lot of people that come in and get customized based on their blood work, but we do offer other options as well for walk-ins as far as like rehydration and recovery.
Gotcha.
We have what we call a Myers cocktail that is just a lot of B vitamins. We recommend, like, if you're going on a trip or you're starting to come down with something, to get that. We also have what's called Rebuild, which is also really good. A lot of our athletes like it because it has the branched chain amino acids, taurine, glutathione.
So a lot of good stuff.
A lot of muscle recovery, a lot of stuff, yeah. So both. We have walk-ins and we have also regular clients that have also done the blood work and have come weekly, sometimes twice a week.
Okay.
We also offer things that help with like dementia and brain fog, and that's something too that the provider can go into detail with that fits specifically to them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So,
So it's a whole different
yeah, and each
kind of world.
I mean, there's definitely multiple options, and each bag can do something different specifically to what your needs are.
Awesome. So you can customize it a little bit, even though you don't have the blood work back. And
Some of
little
the
bit.
options we can.
I
Yeah,
gotcha.
it's good to get the blood work just so we know
exactly
what's
what
working
you're
for
working
you,
on.
and
For
you
sure.
know what can be a positive aspect in moving forward in the treatments to come.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's exciting.
so it is. It's great. I think I would highly recommend it.
All right, so just finished up here at Resilience Code. Got the IV done. You can see my arm wrapped up there. So I'm excited to see how that makes me feel. Overall, I feel like a really good day, really good meeting with the performance side of things and getting started with the custom IV therapy. I think that's going to have a huge impact on me, my overall health, and my performance. So that's really the goal of all of this. So we're going to get into a little bit more as we get into kind of some of the nutrition stuff and some of the stuff that I found on my blood work. We'll follow this up with another video about that to kind of talk about it, because it's just too much to add in now. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Go out, be great, and we will check you later.